And coming up, he's only been in Congress for a little over 2 weeks, but Florida Republican Congressman Dennis Ross is already making waves and wants to say bye-bye to some of the federal workforce. He joins me next.
Bye-bye love, bye-bye happiness, hello loneliness, I think I'm gonna cry. Bye-bye love.
Running for president. Postal Service under a magnifying glass. Republican freshman Congressman Dennis Ross of Florida was just named chairman of the House Subcommittee on the Federal Workforce, Postal Service, and Labor Policy Committee. He joins us now from Tampa. Congressman, welcome.
Thank you very much, Jerry.
It's great to have you here. So tell me, what are you going to cut? Where is the knife going? There's some 2.65 million federal workers. Who has to go?
Well, that's what we're going to find out. I tell you, with 2.65 million workers, we know that there's some inefficiencies in there, there's some waste in there, there's probably some fraud in there. And our first task is going to be to identify where all this money's going. What is an essential government function, and what can we do more efficiently, more effectively in utilizing technology? So we've got a broad brush. We've got to make sure that every part of the federal workforce is doing their job the best they can be doing, and are rewarded appropriately, but making sure, of course, that it's an essential government function.
Congressman, that's hard to do as an outsider. I mean, I've heard people say who've tried to do this in the past, tried to change regulations in Washington, tried to change the culture of Washington, that as an outsider with somebody who may not be there for a lifetime, going up against the agencies can be very difficult. How do you plan to make it a reality?
Well, first of all, we've got to stay focused on it. My time here in the Florida legislature, I went against some of the popular programs that were more government, and they're starting to take hold. If we don't stay focused on exactly what we campaigned on, which is a reduction in government, which is a reduction in taxes, and holding our government workers accountable, then we might as well just give in. We might as well just say, go ahead, what do taxes mean? Government is here to serve the people, and those who want to work for it can work for it and have great legacy benefits. I disagree with that mantra, Jerry. I think it's going to take a great deal of time. I think it's going to be a step in the right direction, but it's not going to happen overnight. We've got to stay focused on our plan to reduce government.
Well, one of your biggest foes is going to be public sector unions. We've seen the strength of them in the past. Certainly, they've pushed state governments to the brink, governments to the brink. How do you go toe-to-toe with the SEIU or any of these other public unions?
Well, first of all, they're the fastest growing population of any unions out there is the public sector. And they in the past have had, some examples of manipulation. And I got to tell you, I'm an advocate for 300 million taxpayers. And I believe I'm on the right. And I think that the truth of what we do will help us negotiate with the unions. But we don't exist for the benefit of the unions. We have to make sure that the taxpayers are getting the best return on their investment. You see, we've grown government by over 400,000 jobs just since the stimulus package, while we've seen the private sector jobs decrease by over 1 million. There's something wrong with this business model that government has right now. And the unions are part of that. And those that want to do their job and want to do it well and want to be rewarded adequately for what they do, those guys are going to like what we do. But those that want to keep business as usual, that want to be complacent in their employment and think that government is there to owe them a lifetime, they might have a problem with where we're going.
Well, you sound like somebody from the business world, and you're a former attorney for Disney World. Clearly, you've been out in the labor force. You know how it works in the private sector. I want to ask you, the president has ordered a 2-year pay freeze for federal workers. Right. Should that go further?
Most likely it probably will have to go further, but think of the alternatives, Jerry. If we can, first of all, not have a pay freeze and then really increase our spending and really burden our taxpayers and lose our dominance in the world economy, or we can lay people off, or we can freeze their pay. And as a businessman, what I've found is that my employees are much more inclined to want to keep their job and reduce their pay, knowing that over time they will get the compensation due them. And so, yeah, I believe we need to freeze pay. I think we can save $30 billion a year, as been shown by the CBO, if we do that. And if it takes 3 years, if it takes 4 years, that's what we have to do.
All right.
But it's going to be, these are some difficult decisions.
Absolutely are. I want to ask you about one specific part of the government. That's the Postal Service. Their problems are well documented. $5.4 billion from funding future retiree health benefits. They lost $8.5 billion last year, $2.5 billion paid to federal government workers' comp. What are you going to do there? It seems like there's no way out. The technology has moved ahead of them. Do we keep them? Should they stay or should they go?
Those are some questions that we're going to address. And today I had a conversation with Postmaster General Donahoe, who I find to be a very accommodating gentleman. He has an economics background. And, you know, what I want to make sure is that if there are congressional impediments to them doing their job cost effectively, that we remove those. But also, we got to make sure that technology catches up, that they catch up with technology. You know, in the world of email and Amazon.com, we might have to look at how we do things differently in the Postal Service. But losing $8.5 billion a year is intolerable. We cannot allow that to happen. So we're going to focus tremendously on the Postal Service. If there are things that can be outsourced to the private sector more efficiently and more cost effectively, we're going to recommend those. You know, the Constitution allows for Congress to establish post offices, and we want to make sure that we give the consumers, that we give our taxpayers the best return on the services that government must provide.
Well, Congressman, as you get underway, you've got to come back and report and tell us how you're doing, how it's going, and what the roadblocks are and where you're succeeding. We appreciate your time.
I'd be delighted to. Thank you very much, Jerry.
You're welcome. If you're fired up about this or any of the issues on the program, just drop us an email to willisreport@foxbusiness.com.